Today's lesson is on week 9, day 2, functions. And as we go into this, the question here is clearly, what is a function? Or is it a function if we see it? And we need to know what we're looking for. So when talking about a function, first we need to know the definition. And the definition is that for each input, there is only one output. So let's look at an example. Here, if we're looking at this gumball machine, I know how it works is that if I put in a coin, whether it's a penny, a dime, a quarter, whatever the cost is, when I put in my money for it, what I'm going to get out is what I want to receive. So for a gumball machine, if I put in my coin, then what I'm going to get out is a gumball, right? And I'm only going to get one. That's the essential part here. If I put one of the coins in for the cost, then I'm only going to get one gumball out. So when we're looking at this input versus output table here, and we're trying to decipher if it is a function, this is an example of a function because each of our inputs only have one output. The input of 1 has an output of C, the input of 2 has an output of B, and the input of 3 has an output of C. Right? But let's look at another example in retrospect here. Now, this is an example of an input-output table that is not a function, right? So A is not a function of B. So 1 has an output of 2, 2 has an output of 3, but 3 here has an output of 4 and 5. So it's going against the rules that a function has only one output per each input, because the input of 3 has more than one output. Another way of finding out if it is a function or not is applying the vertical line test, yes? And this is usually associated when we're looking at parabolas. So let's take an example of a parabola, right? And then let's apply the vertical line test to it. So in order to do that, we need to identify one of our values on our x-axis where the parabola is located. So the parabola is located in quadrant 1. So I'm going to use the x value of 2, right? And now I'm going to draw a vertical line. And now the test says that if I only come across the line once, then it is a function. But if my vertical line goes through the graph twice, as it does here, then it is not a function. We see here that x of 2 crosses that y in two places. It crosses here at 1.5 or 1.5, and it crosses here again at 4.5. So if I was to create an input versus output table here, I would see one of my ordered pairs would be 2 and 1.5, and another would be 2 and 4.5. And if we go back to our example of input-output tables, remember, each input can only have one output. And here it is saying that the input of 2 has two outputs. And since it does not only have one output, then it is definitely not a function. Yes? So let's look at an example for you to try on your own. Are both of these parabolas a function, and why? I would like you to pause the video for a minute or two while you look at this and solve this out for yourself. So pause the video for yourself and start it back when you're ready. What you should have seen was that the first graph over here to the left is a function, because if we were to apply the vertical line test, each input would only have one output. However, our graph over here to the right, this parabola, is not a function, because if we were to apply the vertical line test, each input would not have only one output. Yes, and this is how we discuss functions and how we decide if a graph is or is not a function based on the vertical line test, or we can look at an input-output table and make sure that each input has only one output.